everyone, welcome back to Rainstorm Creations. Today, I have a special swap collab for you with the amazing Charlie B dolls. And of course, as a swap collab, I'll be sending this completed doll off to Charlie at the end of the video, and have an unboxing of the doll that she sent me, so definitely stick around to the end for that. Winter weather. How to make a doll around that? Well, I decided I wanted to make a doll inspired by where I grew up. The winter weather here in the Pacific Northwest. You've probably already heard of or seen this weather before as rumors of rain or shown in iconic media like Gravity Falls and Coraline, though Gravity Falls was in summer. But anyway, the winter here, and the winter I know, is not filled with snow and ice. The winter here is gloomy with clouds in the sky and fog between the trees, and night and darkness that seems to stretch on through the days. The rains come and stay for the season, and the moss covers the rocks, ground, and trees. The mountains become hard to see across the water and become like a legend until they show themselves again from behind the clouds, and the morning frost sparkles in the quiet light of a sun we barely see. This is the winter I know, and so with that in mind, I designed a doll to represent this. I love the design I came up with a lot, but this is just the concept sketch, so let's make her real, shall we? Let's go! As always, first I'm going to start by prepping the base doll. For this custom, I'm going to be using Abbey for her proportions and large size. At first it was because I thought she'd be a really good winter doll base because she's already a winter doll and she has the blue color scheme, and I thought it would be a really good jumping off point, but in the end I ended up sticking with her because of what I said before. Her height, her presence. I wanted this doll to be felt like a mountain itself. Now, we're going to shrink the head for this custom using Catmeleon Studios method, which is 90% acetone in a jar and then leave the head in there for 2 days and then take the head out after 2 days and let it shrink for 2 days and then very carefully, or not so carefully, shove the head back on the body. And that's how I prepped her. Now let's get on to the outfit. For the outfit, I'm going to start with the skirt. I knew from the beginning that I wanted to make this doll a long brown pleated skirt. This, in my mind, represents trees or the bark of a tree. Making this skirt took some time because of the precise measurements you have to make, as well as the actual pleating time, but it's worth it in my mind as a well-done pleated skirt looks really nice to me. Since the insane project that was Strawberry Miku, link up above if you're interested in that project, I've also started using my sewing machine more for sewing doll clothes. I'm still not great at it yet, but with most things, practice makes progress, or at least that's what I say. One of the biggest things you can do with anything with pleats, or seams, or sewing in general, is to iron your garments. I pressed these pleats a bunch before taking all of those pins out, and I was able to flip it with little worry because I trusted the pleats would hold after all of that ironing. Of course, after I flip it inside out, there's something missing. It felt unfinished. So the last thing I did was I coffee stained a piece of lace and sewed it onto the bottom of this skirt. Of course, I had to re-pleat the lace after I sewed it onto the bottom, but I think it added a perfect finishing touch to the skirt. I'm super happy with how this skirt turned out, and next I think it needs a little layer on top of it, so let's make a little apron thingy for it, shall we? I really wanted this doll to look like she actually spends time out in the woods and in nature, and I wanted her to have lots of interesting layers to look at, and so this was one of the ways I did that. I used a shiny green fabric and cut it into this wild shape, and from there I attacked it with sandpaper. This is a great way to weather fabric, and it really gives a roughed up feel. Of course, after that I needed to do a little lint rolling, and finally fray checked all of the edges. Because while I do want it to be weathered, I don't want it falling apart eventually down the line. One of the things Charlie mentioned that she liked in dolls is sturdy things that last, so that was one of my focuses for this doll. And I did that by fray checking all my edges and all of that. Now, here is the finished little apron piece. I love how gross it looks. It's so textured and interesting. And now, let's move on to the sweater. This was relatively simple to make. I eyeballed a pattern and sewed it up. I could do this because I knew I was going to be using this stretchy ribbed fabric that you're seeing now, so I could fudge it a little bit and it would still look good. After making the sweater, I weathered it just like I did the apron piece to give it that I've been out in the woods feel. Oh, and another little sewing tip, for all of my doll clothes and all of my things, I don't sew backwards, forwards, backwards again, like most people do. I tie little knots in the ends of my threads so that it's more secure. Anyway, continuing to sew up the sweater, and just sew up the side seams for the final piece, and this is what the final sweater looks like. I'm super happy with it. I love the little brown weathered sleeves. I think they look really good. And now it's time to move on to the coat. Okay, so if I'm being completely honest with you, this coat was partially inspired by a character from Genshin Impact called Flints that I'm vaguely obsessed with at the moment. Though, besides that, I did want this doll to have a heavy overcoat to represent the night and the darkness that lingers through the winter here. I made this coat out of felt, which is a really interesting fabric to work with at this scale because you can kind of mold it into shape, like you were making a cube out of paper, I guess is the way I approached it. A 2D shape into a 3D shape, if you will. Once the base coat is complete, like this, and I've sewn all the pieces together, it's time to add some fun little detailing in the form of large pockets to make it look like she's like a forager. She goes out and she sticks little stones and rocks and leaves into her pockets. Though, remember, in real life in the woods, leave no trace, and that means no bringing home rocks for you in real life. But she can do it, because she lives in the woods. And the final touch for this coat is going to be some, like, embroidery trim around the pockets and the edges so that you can actually, like, see where those are from far away. And the most exciting part, moss! I love moss. I mentioned it in the intro. Moss is fantastic, and so one of the main themes of this particular project is moss. I'm going to be adding a lot of moss to the coat, the shoes, and to her face as well, as you probably saw. Well, moss is a big thing here, as you probably saw in the intro, and after applying it on camera, I didn't really like how it looked, so I actually ended up tearing it off and redoing it more intentionally. And I'm really, really happy that I ended up doing that because here it looks a little bit clumpy and odd. It doesn't look right. And so when I redid it in the final coat, which you're about to see, look at it. It looks so good. It looks like it's growing on the coat. It looks like it has like a growth pattern. Like, I love the changes I made. I'm so glad I did. And now we're going to move on to the final clothing piece that I filmed making, the shoes. I'm going to show you my method for creating shoe bases that I've tried multiple times and I think works really well. And the best part, there's no 3D printing involved, so it's super beginner friendly. I developed this based off a video from a Japanese plush doll maker, and I'll link that below. But let me know and tag me if you ever try this method. First, you gotta trace the shape of the foot and make a pattern piece. You only need to do this once because the feet on the dolls are symmetrical. Yay! After making sure it's a little bit larger than the doll's foot all the way around, you'll need the extra space for gluing the fabric on later. Then cut out around 6 of these shapes for each foot in a light cardboard or cardstock. I'm using this recycled tissue box because recycling is good for the planet. Yippee! Once they're all cut out, it's time to bend them into the shape of the doll's foot. While you're doing this, be sure that you're constantly checking against the foot and the other cardboard pieces so that they stay even and will still fit the doll no matter what you do. I just line them up and then I bent the first one into shape and then I like layer them and then I line them all up and then I press them into the same like foot curve shape. Once they're all bent, we're gonna glue all the layers together, and to do that you just put glue on one part and put the other one on top. Though while you're doing this, it is important to note that they will want to like unbend from the shape because, you know, glue's kind of wet. And so while I am keeping this glued together and making sure it stays in the foot shape, I rubber band them to the feet, which looks really funny and very silly, but it is very important to make sure that the final shoes and final shoe bases look nice and clean. And this is what that looks like while it's all drying. After that, you're going to cover the base completely in resin or gel top coat. This is what I use. And remember, this stuff isn't great to breathe in, so make sure to wear a respirator and don't touch it with your hands while it's uncured. Then you're going to cure it fully, and then once it's fully cured, I sand all the pieces all the way around so that they're smooth, and now they're done. I really like making bases this way, and I'm so glad I have this method down now, and now it's time to make the rest of the boots. These were inspired by an abandoned pair of boots that I found in the woods while I was out mountain biking a long, long time ago. I think it was like 6 years ago now, and I still think about that picture to this day. I'm showing it here if you are elsewhere and not watching and on your phone or something. Anyway, this is going to be the inspiration photo for these boots, this mossy, abandoned pair of boots that I found in the woods, forgotten by time. Fun stuff, right? One thing I'd change about these boots is I'd separate the back, like, side pieces and sew them up the back to get a better match to the curve of the leg that the doll has, but other than that, I think they turned out super cool. And of course, just like the coat, we have to add the moss, because that's really important, and I want to make it look like those abandoned boots. So we'll moss these bad boys, and then off camera, I also added some lovely glass beads as the heel, so that they have kind of an icy touch to them, because, well, this is a winter weather themed doll, and she has to have some shine to them, and it reminds me of the frost that I see on the grass in the mornings. Finally, the last two things I made are this frosty looking scarf that I had in the concept sketch as like a mist scarf, but it turned into this lacy, pretty, shiny fabric for Frost. And finally, a traveler's belt. This has a little bottle with some gems in it, a little worn leather pouch for money, and some beads. Now, it's time to move on to the face-up. As I've talked about, this doll is inspired by a lot of things that are around me, that I grew up with, that I'm inspired by, and I was really thinking about each of those things as I was making this doll. One of the things that actually came up during the process was I kind of had a mini crash out towards the end of the project where I figured out that I didn't know if Charlie would like this doll. And I figured I'd tell you about that a little bit because, you know, things happen. While I was in that little period of, oh no, should I continue this doll? Should I start over? Like, what do I do? Like, is she even gonna like this doll? I figured out that it's okay to question yourself, but it's also okay to like ask your friends and lean on them for help. So I actually reached out to Charlie and was like, hey, do you like the colors green and brown? Are you gonna be okay with that? And she was like, yeah. So I continued making this doll, and I'm really, really happy I did. And anyway, as you saw, I tried to start this face up like 3 times, and it didn't work. So 3rd time's a charm, and I'm super happy with the texture of her. I painted her face and her hands. None of the rest of her is going to be showing, so I didn't bother because I didn't want to deal with like paint chipping under the clothes and stuff. But yeah, we're on face up number 3 now. This is why I use watercolor pencils. Well, part of the main reason is they work with the sealant, but secondly, for the sketch, it's really, really easy to just go in with water and erase things that you mess up on. And it's okay to mess up, it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to start over again, no matter how far into the process you are. If you don't like what you're making, it's okay to start over. And that's something I learned on this project, because I started over 3 times. But I'm super happy I did. I'm super happy that I redid the face up into this little shape. And now we're gonna add some blushing to her cheeks. I had this in the concept sketch too, because I wanted her to look a little bit like frostbitten, a little bit like she does have like real blood. Yeah, she has like gray, but some cool blushing on top of that is good. That will conclude the first layer of sealant. After that, I seal her a 2nd time with MSC, and I begin painting in all of the details with acrylics. I use watered down acrylics. I should probably get some like acrylic mediums and stuff, some slow dry medium and that sort of thing, so that it's, you know, more consistent in texture, but I haven't done that yet, so I just use water, and I water down my paints so that they spread a little easier and a little thinner, so that I can make small details and whatever else in the face and the eyes that I want to make. I wanted to make her eye blue, and then I added a little storm cloud in her eye, because one of the other things that Charlie mentioned is having an interesting design thing. So I added a little storm cloud in her eye. I hope that's okay. I think she's really cute. I love adding little details to the eyes. Another thing that's in the eye that you probably will never notice or be able to see is there's actually a little water droplet highlight as well up in the top right corner. And then once I'm done with that, to make the eye shiny, I use some UV resin. Again, make sure to wear a respirator. Do not touch the raw UV resin with your bare hands. Make sure you're being safe. And I just put that over the eye very, very carefully. And then once I'm done with that, I stick her under the UV lamp for some time to cook. And then her face up is done. Except I lied, and it's not done, because we still have to add the moss, which is a very important design feature and part of this project. I know what you're thinking. You're like, Nox, why did you add moss on like a full half of her face, like you're missing an eye, like what's going on here? Great question, so glad you asked. My design concept is that this character sleeps on her side, very specifically her left side. So, as she sleeps, moss starts to grow on her left side more and more and more until she's kind of covered in moss. So if you look at her elements on her that have moss on them, you'll start to notice that the stuff on her right side, I'm getting my left and right confused. Right side has more moss on it, which is a really fun design feature that I'm very proud of. Anyway, on to the hair, of course. Always start from the bottom, work your way up. I use yarn wefts. I brush out the yarn, turn it into wefts using glue, and then glue it onto the hair until it's full like this. And then I cut the hair a little bit so it's a little less unwieldy to work with for razor cutting, because I prefer using a thin, very sharp razor blade for cutting yarn hair because it makes it look a little more natural. I really like bob cuts right now, so for her hairstyle, I decided to do this really spiky, kind of anime-esque bob cut. For the bangs, I do the very same thing, where I just go in, carefully-ish, and I cut off the length until I am happy with it. Of course, I separate out the parts that I want to be different. I had a very specific vision for these bangs. I wanted one long bang, like down the middle, one shorter-ish one above her eye, and then like it fades into the rest of her hair around the back. I don't know, it's kind of fun, kind of interesting, and then I just use Got to Be Hair Glued to keep it all into place. And with that, I think she's done. So, may I present Alpine, the winter weather themed swap doll.
I'm so excited. Stop. This is so cool. Wait, okay, hold on, okay. So I'm gonna take the doll out and we're gonna unbox that first and then we'll get back to the box. I love that she also used a red ribbon. That's so fun. Oh my god! Oh my god. The jacket? I love the blue blushing. Oh my gosh. And her hair is so cool. Okay, we're gonna put her to the side for just a moment. So I'm gonna sit her down over here. She's so beautiful. Oh my gosh. Oh, we have to open the hat. Okay. I'm so excited. Ah. This paper's so cool. Oh my. I think like this, maybe? Oh, like, of course she came with a stand. Oh, Charlie, you're so sweet. Oh. First draft of the outfit? Let's see what else is in here. Oh. Ooh. Those look good. Ooh, hazelnut. I love hazelnuts. Sour gummy candy. Ooh. Toffee. I love toffee. Swiss milk chocolate. Oh. And Chocovo. I don't know what that means. Oh. I think that's it. That's in the box. Just double checking. Oh, yes. All of these things. Oh my gosh. I keep looking at the doll. She's so beautiful and precious. Oh. Oh. Watercolors. Oh. She sent me some watercolors. Oh, I love these. They're so pretty. A paintbrush. Gorgeous. She sent me some watercolor art supplies. Oh, that's so kind. I love this paper. This is so pretty. Oh. Look at these. Stunning. I love that. Some paper for watercolors. I'll have to try that out. So kind. And finally, a little note. Yay! Thank you so much, Charlie.
And thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Until then, bye!